Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, April 4th, 2019, and today we're going to be talking about Pete Buttigieg. He's a pretty well-known candidate now amongst the political sphere, especially if you're someone who's watching my video. But he's not too well-known nationwide, but he is pretty known amongst, obviously, politically active people, those that actually do keep up with the news and don't just tune it out. But to be honest, most voters do not know him, but the question stands, does he really have a shot? Now, I was going to do just a pure poll analysis, but I really think that we should be focusing on this candidate in particular because he's coming out of nowhere. And when I say nowhere, I mean nowhere. He's coming out of a small town in Indiana as a mayor, not governor, not senator, not representative, not even state legislator. He's a mayor of a town in the state of Indiana, a state that Donald Trump won by over 20% in the 2016 presidential election. If this was any other type of election, this type of candidate will be completely thrown out. Clinton was from New York. Okay, if we look at other candidates, Kerry was from Massachusetts. If we're looking at Barack Obama, he was from Illinois. A lot of these candidates that ran, they're coming from Democratic states. This guy is coming from a pretty Republican state, and not to say that there haven't been previous nominees that were from, safe states for the opposition party, like Donald Trump was from New York as well. And if you look at Mitt Romney, he was from Massachusetts. If you look at John McCain, he was from Arizona, so it's not too much in the opposition, but now it's more of a purple state. But generally, the trend for Democratic candidates is that they have a strong background in terms of, number one, they aren't usually mayors. They're not usually governors. Most of the time, they're senators or, secretaries of whatever. And again, going back to the state, usually it's a state like New York, a state like, if we look back to 2016, Vermont, another safe Democratic state. We had, where was he? I guess Jim Webb from Virginia, not safe Democratic, but still a Democratic state regardless. Indiana's not really in the running for Democratic states, but that's not just the only thing. There's a new Iowa poll from Emerson that shows Joe Biden leading Bernie Sanders by 1%, but that's not the main point. Yes, this race was always going to get close to the Iowa caucus. We're going down the numbers, and the third place person is Pete Buttigieg at 11% in the state of Iowa. Now, I want you to imagine this. Someone goes from 1% to 11% in weeks, right? And not saying that Buttigieg is going to continue rising up, because I personally do not believe he is going to end up the nominee. It's just something to note that he has improved by 10% in the state of Iowa. Now, if we're looking at the candidate himself, he's a different type of candidate. He would be the first openly gay president. That's one of the things that a lot of people like to point out in terms of referring to him as a candidate. But that's not his only issue. He has a number of ideas, including a different type of way of aligning the Supreme Court with 15 justices, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and 5 unanimously chosen. A whole lot of things that are different about him as a particular candidate, but he's at 11% in the state of Iowa. If a nobody candidate gets third place in the state of Iowa, everyone will know their name by the end of the evening. Now, that can't be said for someone like Martin O'Malley because he got less than 1% of the vote there, but Pete Buttigieg, if he gets 11% in the Iowa caucus, I meant to say caucus before, if he gets, if he gets 11% of the Iowa caucus, everyone will know his name. Headline after headline, yes, sure, if Biden wins there, big news for him. But if a nobody candidate that went from 1 to 11% in weeks and all of a sudden goes on to get third in the Iowa caucus, that will be something to note. And it's not just Iowa. Pennsylvania recently came out with Democratic presidential primary data, again by Emerson, that showed, of course, Joe Biden leading. I mean, it's a state he's born in, going down to Sanders, Warren, and then Buttigieg. This nobody candidate has somehow passed O'Rourke, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Tulsi Gabbard, Kirsten Gillibrand, Andrew Yang, Julian Castro. The list goes on. Again, a nobody beats a whole lot of somebodies. That doesn't sound like the whole name recognition type Democratic primary that we're seeing. I mean, yes, Biden is still leading because of name recognition, and a number of other factors have influenced his supporters. But Pete Buttigieg, you couldn't even pronounce that name months ago, okay? Just to put that all in perspective, okay? And if we're looking at other polls, going over to Nevada, sure, Biden leads, followed by Sanders, O'Rourke, Warren, Harris, then Buttigieg, somehow beating Senator Klobuchar, Senator Booker, Representative Gabbard, Senator Gillibrand, Secretary Julian Castro. These candidates that were previously big-name candidates that people were pushing to run are losing to a mayor of a city in Indiana. Now, obviously, it's not impossible for him to win this nomination. I don't think that it's likely, but it is something to point out that this guy went from being literally nothing in terms of the Democratic race to now being influential on this race. Let's go back to Iowa. Let's say that Pete Buttigieg drops out of the race and he's at an 11% once the Iowa caucus comes in about a year from now. Well, where does that 11% go? In a 1-point race between Biden and Sanders, that could make all the difference. Or whether it's between Harris and O'Rourke or Warren for third place, that 11% could make all the difference. If this man is actually able to get in there for 3rd%, maybe he even gets in the top 5, people will know his name. This guy was able to beat a number of senators, governors, representatives, secretaries to get into this position as someone who nobody really knew, which also shows the way that his campaigning works. He's getting his name out there. While the country may not know him, these early voting states know him. And that's an amazing strategy because if you are able to do well in the early states, name recognition will no longer be an issue. Okay, news companies will be practically paying you to come onto their show and discuss your newfound type of campaign. And that's exactly what Buttigieg is going to do here. Again, we're not seeing national ads from him every single day on our TV screens. I mean, ad season hasn't really started. And if we're looking at him as a candidate, not that many people know him. And I'm also going to do a him versus Trump prediction in the future. But again, just testing that, that's pretty important. Now, here's also something I wanted to note. Even though, like I said before, he wasn't too well known nationwide, Biden, of course, leads the 2020 pack, followed by Sanders, Harris, O'Rourke, Warren, Booker, then Buttigieg. So that puts Buttigieg at around 7th place, but 7th place as a mayor, not known before, definitely is a pretty crazy thing. So me breaking the barrier of this video, I still cannot believe that Beto O'Rourke has announced his run for president after losing in a Senate race in Texas. It's just kind of surprising to me that he's bold enough to run for president. I'm not saying that he would lose to Trump. I'm just saying that it's very surprising considering that he said that he wasn't going to run and then decided to. I just think it's interesting, and it's kind of crazy to me that this many candidates are running. But back to what I was saying before, Buttigieg is at 7%. Okay, he beats Senator Amy Klobuchar, Andrew Yang, like I said before, Julian Castro, like I said before, John Hickenlooper, Kirsten Gillibrand, Jay Inslee, and all those other no-name candidates or big-name candidates that are under 0.7%. And there are some. And if we're just looking at, Buttigieg's chances, he's peaked at around 4 nationwide if we're looking at the general polls. But here's the thing. He wasn't even on this list before. So from here, he wasn't even known. So this was about last year, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, no. That might have been earlier this year because I just assumed it was last year because of the way that the dating was. But actually, that might have been earlier this year. Yeah, it was earlier this year where it showed Biden in the lead and it showed Buttigieg at 0%, 0%, 0%. Here's his peak back then, 1%. Okay, that was in February. Okay, now it's up to 3, 2, 4%. That's not the biggest increase, but it is an increase. And it does show that in the most recent poll, actually, that he is at 4% nationwide, which means that 3% nationwide, which shows that people are starting to find out who he is. From someone that wasn't even considered to be on the list to barely included, now on every single poll. And in fact, they are doing some Trump versus Buttigieg matchups. If we look here, Buttigieg leads Trump by 4%. Obviously, there's a lot more undecided voters compared to a Biden versus Trump election, but they are including him. In the state of Nevada, he loses to Trump by 4. In fact, Biden is the only Democrat to win there. And if we're looking around, he's not included in that poll. But it's just very interesting that Buttigieg is now actually starting to be taken seriously, number one. And number two, having a pretty good shot at getting up to 3rd, 4th place nationwide. And it's funny, he's over here. And if we're just looking at the numbers themselves, it seems like a really good sign for him. If he's able to keep it up, not saying he will, not saying he won't, he could be in, and a lot of other Democrats could be in for a run for their money because this guy is coming from nothing all the way up to something. And I think that's something that the Democratic Party really needs to watch out for if they want to push for a Biden agenda or a Sanders agenda. Because again, O'Rourke wasn't known 2 years ago. Yeah, he was not known. And now he's doing pretty well, sometimes 3rd or 4th place nationwide. And now Buttigieg is 6th, sometimes 7th nationwide. So that's also something to note as well. Overall, I think that was a combination I did not like. overall, Pete Buttigieg is doing, again, pretty well. I think that there are some things that could end up boosting his campaign if, let's say, Joe Biden doesn't run or other candidates drop out. But again, I think he's going to show the Democratic Party something new that they haven't seen in a pretty long time. So that wraps up today's video. I'm going to do the Reagan FDR video probably on the weekend because, again, I'm probably just going to live stream it because I want to talk about it for a little bit more. And if we're talking about a future video, I'm probably going to do a Pete Buttigieg and Andrew Yang versus Donald Trump video, obviously 2 separate videos. I also need to make those electoral maps and go state by state. But yeah, so that wraps up today's video. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.